I'm so excited about this opportunity to share the wisdom from my experience of menopause. And I began menopause at about 42, and by the time 44 rolled around, I was fully in menopause. And what I found was that it really caught me off guard, for one thing, because I didn't expect it so early. And because my mother had passed away when I was 11, I had not much of a reference point for that. And what I found was that it really had taken me for a loop, at first, because there wasn't anybody around me that had gone through the experience first. And I tended to be the first one to have kids and the first one to, do a bunch of different things in my life, and this happened to be another one of those. So thank God I had been studying Ayurveda for probably a good 10, 15 years by then. So I was able to know from a more nutritional and health-oriented point of view how I was going to deal with it. But it was the psychological and spiritual aspects that really were a big aha. And one of the main things that I found that impacted me immediately was this experience of men, oh, pause, please just give me some time to re-reference who I am. And one of the best stories that I heard that helped me navigate through this the best was Christiane Northrup, when she talked about how when we go through menopause, it's like we're unplugging our circuits from the circuit breaker of life, where we're outer referred, and we're looking outside ourselves to match our energy and procreate. And when we go through menopause, we've been unplugged from that experience, and yet we haven't been plugged into anything else. So we're in that great abyss, and not knowing what's next on the other side, and not knowing what we're going to be plugged into. But when the plug started being plugged in, what I realized, I was vertically plugged in now instead of horizontally. And I sourced from here instead of out here. And I wasn't referenced from this place of how I'm going to complete myself, but from this place here. So it was like a lot more circuits were opened, and yet all of these continue to remain open also. So I felt like I gained so much more power, and I didn't look for someone else to complete me in that way that I had never in my life been able to experience before. So that was a real exciting part for me. At the same time, I happened to be going through a divorce, which I've heard is pretty common when women go through menopause because of that need to pause. So there was a lot of breakdown in relationships and things like that that also occurred. But I think that when I look back now, although I wasn't the one that wanted the divorce, I see how it benefited me so much, because it did give me a complete opportunity to really go inside and have my inner ashram journey. And that's what it felt like for about 10 years, that I really felt like I was in an ashram and I was just finding out who it is that I serve now and have that experience.
How has that affected your business, and how has it changed it or enhanced it?
What I found is I decided at that point that menopause was going to be my main focus, and that's the clientele that I wanted to draw to me predominantly. And that has happened because I love working with women, and obviously, as you know, we tend to attract more women in our practices. But I love sharing with them this transition that I've gone through and how I can support them, not only through things like, why am I not stopping bleeding and I'm already 65? Or, what's happening to me? I'm 39 and it feels like I'm already starting menopause, and I feel like I'm losing my mind and I can't think straight. And, I walk into a room and I don't know where I am. All of that, to just the laughter, the joy, and everything. I felt that the sister connection got a lot stronger from my experience of myself going through it, but also just sharing this with women and having this common sister bond that, no one else has with you until you've gone through it. So it was a really nice initiation for me to then share with others. Yeah.
And I know for me, one of the reasons I came to see you was because of menopause.
Yes.
And at the time, I was going through a very, very challenging time. And my journey actually started when I was 26, and I have a non-traditional menopause journey where mine was medically induced at 26 through infertility and surgery. And so I experienced the symptoms early on, and not knowing what it was at 26, that it was hormonal and symptomatic with that. I was also going through my own journey through my illness, and not knowing for 9 years that this journey was going to send me to an even more divine passion and calling. And so I almost went into, from 26 till present time, I've been on a 20-year menopause journey.
Wow.
And it's just been, I would say it was frightening in the beginning. It was overwhelming and confusing because fear of the unknown and what those possibilities may lie. There's always something in any phase in transition, whether it be adolescence, birthing, child rearing, and now menopause. So for me, menopause was confusion.
Yes.
And what's going on with my body?
And
my
especially since you didn't
mind.
even really get to complete the last
Right.
phase. Yeah.
And subsequently I had a hysterectomy. So I went through a non-traditional menopause, but in the same essence, it was spiritual because I'd been practicing yoga for many, many years. It actually helped me find a divine, more conscious self. I was yearning for balance, spiritual balance. And I believe that my menopause journey, I believe, happened for me because that's where my journey lied, was in the knowing that whatever I knew before was not who I really was and who I really am. And letting go of the preconceptions and the roles that we play in society is now coming to the forefront, where menopause has now showed me that it's okay to be who I truly am, my authentic self as a spiritual woman, as a goddess. And the whole journey itself has made me realize that letting go and shedding that skin, shedding everything, all the anger, all the hurt, and all the pain, has led me into this new divine power where I now get to create and embrace and honor the feminine essence of who I am as a woman and share that with other women. That menopause isn't scary to me now. Even though I've gone through it for 20 years, my symptoms came back again at 41. And I think for me, part of it was stress-induced traveling. I traveled to Montreal, around the world, and coming back into a different country and getting myself acclimated to a new environment. And that stress is what made me unbalanced. And so I sought your expertise and your help, and because of your guidance and who you are, I've learned a lot about myself, as not only as a woman, but as a spiritual goddess.
As you were talking and you said all that travel tended to throw you off balance, as we know from Ayurvedic medicine, how much Vata can really create a lot of mobility on the inside of the body where nothing feels stable, and it can re-stimulate things that haven't been active in a while. And I think that you did the best thing by getting into Ayurveda. It's wonderful that you came right to it when you got here and worked on that. And
I agree. I think with holistic health in general, I know in my experience, the pharmaceuticals that I was taking was not supporting who I was emotionally and spiritually, and removing those toxics and chemicals from my body allowed me to be more, allowed me to feel and connect with whatever it was I was going through, whether it be pain or hot flashes or the symptoms, but knowing that this too shall pass, and that this is something that is a rite of passage.
Yes,
for women.
I think so too. Yeah, when I went through menopause, I think I had a couple power surges, where heat would rush my body. But I loved the experience. I felt like, okay, now I feel my fire. I really feel it. I don't just know I'm a pitta. I feel that I'm a pitta, And I didn't really have to, fortunately, I should say, have to deal with hot flashes. They were never really an issue because I knew Ayurveda, and I knew that heat could rise as a transition starts because air fans fire, and any transitions in Ayurveda are related to Vata because Vata creates change. But if you're a Pitta person and that change starts to happen, it can really throw the heat up, and it will want to throw it up into the head a lot. So you'll get these, boom, for a lot of women. What we found though, and I love this in Ayurveda, there's always a connection to what we learned from Western medicine. So I am very appreciative of all that they've done in their research because it really helped me in my journey. For instance, in Ayurveda, we have the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And there's the three primary hormones that we work with in menopause, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So progesterone's related to Vata and all those changes and movements. And in fact, it's what brings the blood on at, near the new moon. And what will happen during the full moon is the estrogen is rising to its peak, and that's related to kapha, when we feel our fullness and we experience that embodiment at its grandest. Maybe in our thighs, they start to grow and rise a little, and our belly starts to fill out. And it's at that peak when estrogen and progesterone are meeting on the rise, where we end up having our menses, that we might experience things like craving chocolate that's high in copper, which increases our progesterone levels. And then when we start to have that estrogen rise around our fertility and our ovulation, then our testosterone will also start to rise so that we have that drive or that pitta to go out and procreate. And so all these things, when the wind starts increasing in the body, start to go a little bit haywire. So for me to be able to navigate through that with the awareness of Ayurvedic medicine behind me was really helpful, because as I experienced that, I said, okay, it's like there's a gale inside me, and it's just, whoa, and what do I need to do first, And thank God, with the blessing of knowing pulse, I was able to see which dosha was causing another dosha to rise or fall. And as I knew that, I was able to choose the specific herbal compounds that I wanted to use that would also increase a specific hormone or decrease another one. So that for me was really exciting, and I really liked how Ayurveda gave us not only a physical input of how to correct these imbalances, but mentally it was correcting the rage or the anger that started to rise a little bit, of mainly towards myself and some of the choices that I made, and like, how could I let myself do that, Because as we look back from a postmenopausal position and we look at our life and we see the choices we make, we would just never make some of those choices now. But what a great opportunity, though, to really have the awareness to look back and say, oh yes, I was driven by this need to complete myself here, and I just don't need to do that now. And I think that probably we've gotten named hag and crone and all these words because we just don't put up with any shit anymore. We just really find that place and we move forward. But as I navigated through different herbs, I had so much fun in my journey of just finding things that really work. And even outside Ayurvedic herbs, what really worked to bring my essence back to its normalcy. And I found herbs from Thailand and herbs from, many other countries besides India, of course, the West and South America and things like that, and things like maca or something called suvantambu, which is an Indian herb that's not found in India anymore, but we found it under Pueria mirifica in Thailand, and it's a fabulous herb for increasing estrogen in the body like no other herb that I've ever found, probably 10 times stronger than most of the other herbs. So that for me was a godsend, and to have that under my belt when I was working through my own menopause wasn't even present at the time, so I had to navigate a different way. But for all the other women that once I did find it, it's really brought them back into balance and brought their estrogen levels up superbly, without having to use transdermals or synthetic hormones.
Do you think that women are open to using the herbs?
Oh, absolutely. They want that bad. No woman really wants to use synthetic hormones that I treat. That's why they're there. Obviously, I don't see the masses. I see the ones that are proactive in their choices. But I found that most women are a little bit apprehensive about that, especially after, in the 80s and early 90s when we heard so much bad press about hormones and they were taking women off them, Then we really, started to look in another direction, and I think a lot of us never looked back, But yeah, I found that women really appreciate being able to use herbs, and they start to, like you said earlier, feel inside their body what's happening. You know, like that one particular herb that I was talking about, the Suvantambu, it actually, if I take too much of it, I can feel my ovaries swelling like they're ready to spit out another egg. And there was at one point when I was doing research on this particular herb that I actually started my period again.
Really?
Yeah, probably 10 years after menopause. So it has that kind of strength in the body too.
What would you recommend for someone, for women? A lot of women have insomnia, obviously during menopause.
Yes, that's very, very common.
And it's, you know, it's detrimental to our health that we need sleep. It's the foundation of our health. And
yes.
So what would you tell women when they're not sleeping?
Well, one thing I think that's super important for women to know, and everyone to know really, is that we produce the most growth hormone between 10 p.m. and midnight. Mm-hmm. And during that time, if we can keep our growth hormones high, we'll actually be communicating through our pituitary gland to all of our other glands to remain high. Mm-hmm. And so getting sleep from those during those 2 hours will really actually give us 4 hours of rest. So that's a big important thing, because what will happen for most women that can't sleep is they can't sleep between 2 and 6 a.m.
Right.
And the reason why is because it's the Vata time of day. And the mind gets busy, and all the changes that are going on create this inner chaos. And the woman's having to move her bladder a little more often during menopause also. And she will get up to go to the bathroom, and then her mind will kick in, and then it's all over. You know?
Yeah.
So if we can get those extra 4 hours of rest before midnight, because it's really easy too when we've got some extra heat in our body to burn the midnight oil and not
Absolutely.
sleep till after midnight.
Absolutely.
But if we can readjust our schedule so that we are sleeping and getting those 4 hours of rest, even if we only get a couple more before this cycle starts, we've got 6 full hours of rest. And that, for me, was extremely important. And things that I would do to help, you know, get my circadian rhythm back on track in the beginning of that was to give myself an abhyanga, which is a oil massage that we do in Ayurveda with medicated oils.
I love that.
And then to take a warm bath. And then I would make warm almond milk. You know, I would just slightly warm it up. That I would home make with fresh dates for a sweetener, and I would put cardamom, which is high in estrogen also, and saffron, which helps reduce heat in the reproductive system, and a little bit of nutmeg, that's a sedative, and drink that before I went to bed and got out of my bath, and I just felt so prepared to go inward, and I've never had sleep problems my entire menopause.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Most women would be so lucky to enjoy sleep every day. You know, one of the things you mentioned about hot flashes, there's a quoter saying that a hot flash is Kundalini energy rising, because my experience with hot flash has been intense. And I didn't know at the time that from the base of our spine all the way up, the Kundalini rising is where our hot flashes originate. And to feel that and to know and be aware that that is Kundalini rising, men have been practicing and meditating for years and years to feel that energy. And we women, all we have to do is live long enough to feel that and to experience that. So a hot flash is really a spiritual experience in knowing that that energy, the Kundalini, is there, and it's bringing us to an awareness of who we are. So for me, I know that I have been involved with Western medicine for many years because I've had 8 surgeries. And I've had to go back and forth. But once I found that holistic health, including Ayurveda and herbs and acupuncture, as well as yoga and many other forms of therapy, has helped me in my progression of menopause. And my recommendation for women is there's never one thing that works for every woman, because we are all individuals and we're all different, and our bodies are made differently. And so I've practiced with herbs. I've taken many herbs, as well as and Ayurveda treatments, which is absolutely amazing. And at the same time, I've also practiced yoga for many years. And there's an actual practice called hormone yoga therapy, which Dinah Rodriguez originated. And she developed a program where certain exercises, poses that are not the common downward facing dog or cobra pose, but certain poses that stimulate the estrogen and progesterone only. And when we practice these poses, in addition to all the other therapies such as Ayurveda and acupuncture and herbs, it actually helps bring women to balance.
That's fabulous.
And I know, it was so amazing. And I was recently certified in hormone yoga therapy, but adding that on to my practice was so inspiring and awakening, because now here's another therapy that is holistic and healthy and natural, and we can stimulate our progesterone and estrogen through yoga and breathing, pranayama, Vijaya breathing, and so forth. And so I know for me, when my clients come to see me, yoga being the sister science of Ayurveda, in addition to practicing meditation and qigong and energy healing and pranayama breathing, I think all of that, I've incorporated that in myself and my journey, has helped me with a lot of the symptoms, which is, I feel like I'm going crazy. I just want to pull my hair out sometimes, but focusing on myself, focusing on the breath, focusing on our second chakra, and bring that heat and energy into this area to stimulate that balance and growth. That's what has helped me in my journey. And I know that a lot of women that come to visit me want suggestions for how to live a journey of menopause that's healthy and not stressful. And so I would recommend as well a hot bath or warm bath with some essential oils. Definitely the stimulation of the brain when we sleep, to reduce that stimulation by removing all electronics in your bedroom, in your sleeping area, to make that slumber, so that we're quiet, so that we're in a place of peace and serenity and calm, so that we can have that peaceful sleep for 8 hours or whatever it is our body's yearning for. And I know for me, as I went through menopause, as I'm going through menopause, I feel that now it's time for me. It's time for me to take care of me. And for so many years, involving and doing and giving, and now it's time for the receiving part, where menopause is about, like you said, pausing, pausing from life, pausing from the chaos, pausing and being still, is what I've experienced now in menopause. I used to teach 25 classes a week of yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong. And it was in my early 30s, and I had the energy. I had great energy, and I loved it. And it stimulated me and enhanced my spirituality. Now, as I go through menopause, I realize that now it's a time to slow down, that it's not all about, okay, I got to go to the next job, I got to do this class and that, I have to, there's the schedule. I get to focus on taking care of myself and focusing on the balance that I have been longing for, that most women have been longing for. And so the practice of yoga for me has been just an essential, significant part in my healing in menopause. And without that, I don't think I would be, where I am now and practicing what I do.
Yeah, and it sounds like everything that you've gone through has been so amazingly perfect in the imperfection of it.
Absolutely.
That you now have something to offer for women that do have to go through that particular journey, and of surgeries and early menopause and, infertility and all of that. That, unfortunately you had to go through it to be able to teach this, but what a gift that you have now.
Thank you. I believe it's a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
That everything that happens in our life, our experiences, are lessons for us to learn. And if I had not gone through that initial surgery, I would have never delved into the holistic health, the alternative healing, the amazing ways of healing naturally. I would have never gone into this calling and passion. And because of my experience of my illness, it brought me to where I am now, and being here surrounded with goddess women and the spirituality and the essence of who we are. I know that most women are probably wondering, well, should I take hormones or should I not take hormones? does it, my symptoms are really severe, or if they're not so severe, should I take herbs? For me, because I've gone through so much physically, I would suggest first going to your doctor and getting a blood test just to see where you are hormonally, and then trying different herbs and trying different therapies, alternative therapies, to see if that alleviates your symptoms and help balance you out. For me personally, I have been taking bioidentical hormones because for my body, that's what I need at the time. But I do still take herbs to help me balance out all the other symptoms. So for me personally, I would say whatever works for the woman, whatever she feels comfortable with, whatever that modality is, whether it be a combination of Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, or all of the above, whatever works for you, I would definitely try it. But if you don't try it, then you won't know.
Yes, for sure. And with you not having your ovaries or your uterus, is that correct?
It's actually just my uterus. Right?
Just your uterus, okay. So you do produce some hormones, but
I
for
do.
women that don't have their ovaries, they can't rely on those those glands now to produce, and so they are going to need to use something like bioidenticals. And even with someone like yourself, there are times that we need to have that kind of support, and bioidenticals would, of course, be the best way to go for that.
Right.
And in Ayurveda, we say everything in the universe is medicine and everything in the universe is poison, depending on who uses it, when they use it, and how do they use it. So even what you're doing right now is the perfect medicine for you, and your journey.